Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Forced to leave as flames inch closer.
I really don't want to lose my home.
There were 6 of us with 2 dogs and 2 cats in that SUV.
Tumbler Ridge evacuees try to stay positive as crews battle a nearby wildfire. Plus, fed up with the pain.
I just wanted somebody to listen to me and do something about it.
A BC Indigenous woman diagnosed with cancer believes her agony could have been avoided. And back in the octagon.
I'm really excited to be here. The combination of the mountains and the water is like unbelievable.
The UFC returns to Vancouver, and with it, some hopeful Canadians.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away tonight. More than 2,000 people who live in Tumbler Ridge are out of their homes tonight. They are the latest to flee a rapidly moving wildfire in northern BC. The evacuation order came in suddenly yesterday. And as Renee Filipponi shows us, evacuees are hoping that a desperate firefighting effort is enough to save their community.
Aggressive, extreme, and intense. The West Kiskatna River wildfire moved fast and doubled in size overnight. Residents of Tumbler Ridge went from seeing smoke in the distance to an evacuation order in just hours Thursday. More than 2,000 fled to nearby communities. Angela Zimmer quickly picked up her 3-year-old twins from daycare and tried to explain what was happening.
So I actually showed them where the smoke was and what that meant, that there was a big fire coming. And they did this on their own accord. They started calling it a monster, and the firefighters and the fire trucks are going to go fight the monster.
She is watching updates closely, thinking about the community she loves.
I know that we could start our lives over elsewhere, but I really don't want to lose my home.
They have friends to stay with. Not everyone is so lucky.
I slept in my vehicle last night. The kids slept in the car with me, so there were 6 of us with 2 dogs and 2 cats in that SUV.
Fire crews and city staff who stayed behind shared this video of the community, and there is some cautious optimism.
Hopefully that wind will shift earlier than it is forecast to, but in the meantime, the area of concern continues to be the community of Tumbler Ridge.
This is the second time this year Dawson Creek has welcomed evacuees fleeing fires.
The most important is we get everybody healthy and we get them out of there. I mean, people can't be replaced. Objects can.
There are also concerns about prehistoric artifacts. Thousands visit Tumbler Ridge every year to see the bones and fossilized footprints here. It's been recognized by UNESCO as a site of international significance. From BC's Premier, words of warning for everyone in the province about a fire season already off to an early and dangerous start.
Please use caution so that we can try our best to avoid a catastrophic fire season here in the province.
For now, it's a waiting game for residents of Tumbler Ridge, watching the forecast and hoping the fire spares their community. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Dawson Creek.
On the other end of our province, wildfire officials are sending 20 more firefighters to help battle an out-of-control blaze that's burned more than 2 square kilometers of forest on western Vancouver Island. It's also cut off the only highway connecting Port Alberni, Tofino, and Ucluelet with the rest of BC. Janella Hamilton joins us now with the latest on that blaze. Janella.
Dan, the extra crews will join more than 60 firefighting personnel already on the ground at the Cameron Bluffs wildfire east of Port Alberni. Several air tankers, firefighting helicopters, and other pieces of heavy equipment continue to battle the blaze, which has grown to 208 hectares since it was first reported Sunday. It is a wildfire of note, which means it is highly visible or poses a threat to public safety. The BC Wildfire Service says cooler temperatures and light rain are helping, but the fight to contain it is far from over.
Noticeable growth to the east or to the west, and the majority of the growth has been, again, on the southern flank of the fire, which is up in the mountains away from the highway.
And Janella, how is this impacting people in the communities that are cut off right now?
Well, Dan, planes with healthcare professionals are taking off from Qualicum Beach Airport heading to Port Alberni, where doctors and nurses who don't live there need to get to work out West Coast General Hospital. It is critical that they get there in order to keep it running. They are finding creative ways to get healthcare staff to where they need to go.
I thought they might cancel my shifts, but I got a text from my nurse manager and said, "We're flying you all over." Stay tuned.
At least 2 return charter flights a day are being paid for by Island Health to keep the healthcare wheels turning. But on Highway 4, no wheels will be turning at least until next week as the closure remains in effect through the weekend. BC Wildfire Service says slope stability experts will reassess highway safety regularly, and the 4-hour detour is closed until about 9 o'clock tonight to retrieve a vehicle that rolled into Francis Lake. The Ministry of Transportation says there's potentially significant environmental damage from the truck rolling into the lake. The original plan was to leave the truck in the lake so the detour could stay open, but they realized they couldn't risk more damage, so they're taking it out now.
Janella Hamilton reporting live tonight. Thank you. Johanna Wagstaff joins us now for a look at the forecast. Joe, let's start in the northeast. What are you watching for tonight?
Dan, there are thunderstorms in the area of the Tumbler Ridge fire, bringing some good moisture, but also erratic winds and more lightning strikes. This moisture, though, we will be talking about because, as Janella said, we're seeing it right across to the island. This is good moisture. Unfortunately, having to get through a storm cell right now. This is live radar and lightning detector, and I've put the location of the Tumbler Ridge fire on. This system coming in a little earlier than yesterday's models were forecasting. We were really worried about strong east to west winds in the Tumbler Ridge region again today. This system moved in faster, so winds have actually been a little calmer but more erratic, so not getting that strong east to west push. But we're watching for that thunderstorm in the area. Lightning strikes may start new fires. We're also getting good downpours, but erratic winds. This is good moisture, though. We will see it all the way up to the northeast and right across the southern sections of the province. It's not going to be enough to turn the dial on what will be a long season ahead. It was just such an extremely dry May. We saw snowpacks disappear at an unprecedented rate. We spoke to hydrologists from the BC River Centre about the long-lasting impacts of the May we've just had. Take a listen.
We're already at the low relative to normal for this time of year. Not necessarily at a low where it's concerning for water levels, just because typically the spring is when the flows are at their highest. But if we continue this for another 3 or 4 months, we could be in a situation come September or October like we were last year, but potentially even worse.
Yeah, we'll remember last fall was one of our longest droughts that time of the year. And Dan, today we finally broke the record for dry days in May and June for YVR, 34 days of less than 1 millimeter. That is tied for the longest, driest stretch ever. And we are seeing the implications with our fire danger map. But I'll break that rain down a little bit later on the show. Good, we're getting some.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
To other news now, a Nisga'a woman from Terrace was diagnosed with cancer this week after what she says was a frustrating years-long fight to be heard and get care. Lori Mercer believes the pain she went through before her diagnosis could have been avoided. And as Liam Britton reports, she has some theories to explain her lack of care.
I was in so much pain, and I just wanted somebody to listen to me and do something about it.
Lori Mercer said she had to fight to be heard as a tumor slowly fractured her spine. This week, she was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a cancer that starts in white blood cells. She believes the trouble started long before that. In 2017, Lori had no family doctor. 5 walk-in or virtual clinic doctors told her her white blood cell count was out of range. Little was done.
And I had asked a few times to be referred. Like, can we investigate this?
In late May, she had agonizing back pain. She made several visits to Mills Memorial Hospital in Terrace, insisting something was seriously wrong. The doctor wouldn't admit her for further treatment.
And I just said, I am your patient. You need to listen to me.
Finally, she was admitted. It was discovered a growing tumor fractured her spine. She was flown to Vancouver General Hospital for back surgery and to start cancer treatment.
So how did the situation get so bad when a symptom was first detected 6 years ago? Well, for one thing, Lori didn't have a family doctor back then. She believes that if she did, they might have been able to put the pieces together and maybe get her cancer detected earlier.
I probably wouldn't have had a disc degenerate and fracture. I wouldn't have gone through all this pain.
But she also wonders if systemic racism caused some doctors to not take her seriously. Discrimination wouldn't surprise Farah Shroff. She's a UBC professor who researches equity in healthcare.
One of the most common forms of bias, implicit bias, or sometimes conscious, but usually implicit, is disbelief.
That disbelief leads to insufficient care fueled by stereotypes.
The stereotype for women often are that women are hysterical or too emotional, and so they take symptoms too seriously, and this assumption that Indigenous people are addicted either to alcohol or other drugs, and that whatever symptoms that they're experiencing are a result of an addiction and not a chronic or acute health problem.
Northern Health, which is responsible for Mills Memorial, did not respond to a request for comment. Lori, for her part, is just starting chemotherapy in Vancouver. Her husband has been keeping her company all this time, along with his music. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
2 women have been found dead inside a home in Kelowna's Upper Mission area, and a third person was rushed to hospital in critical condition. They were discovered around 9 p.m. last night at a home on Swan Drive. Police have not said how the 2 women died or if they've arrested anyone yet. A man was found unresponsive in the home and is now being treated in hospital. A child was also found in there, physically unhurt, and is being taken care of. It's being treated as a crime scene, and the deaths are considered suspicious. Police say, though, it is not linked to organized crime. A tense morning for shoppers and staff at a grocery store in West Vancouver today after a car barreled into it. Take a look. The fire department says crews were called to the Whole Foods at the Park Royal Mall and found the car about 12 meters into the produce section. One person was sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, while others were treated for shock. Crews have been working to pull that car out of the store. It's not clear what led to the crash, but police are looking into it. Marchers took to the streets of downtown Vancouver today, trying to raise attention for missing and murdered Indigenous men and boys. Yasmin Gandam has more on those whose stories are very personal.
So we're here right now at this march for missing and murdered Indigenous men, boys, and 2 Spirit Plus people. And you can see behind me all of the marchers here, and they marched all the way over the Cambie Street Bridge, and they're making their way right now to Creekside Park. And let's chat with some of the people here, some of the marchers, and see why this is so significant for them. Why are you here today, and why is this important for you?
I'm here to remember my brother-in-law, Everett Jones. He went missing in Duncan, BC, right? And his mom is just so worried and wondering what happened to her son.
We see that they have this sign here, Justice for Charles Udi. Can I chat with you a little bit about what you're here for today?
He passed away September 6, 2015. They found him in a storm drain on near the P&E grounds. We've been researching and investigating on our own, trying to find out what happened, because we don't believe he died an accidental death.
And what would you hope that people understand from today, and to really raise awareness about these missing and murdered deaths?
The more we bring awareness, because when my son died, there's nobody. We felt all alone. I feel so uplifted seeing all these people, and that our prayers are being answered and that we're being heard too.
Often we hear about no more stolen sisters. The signs here today saying no more stolen warriors, really trying to raise awareness about the significance about missing and murdered Indigenous men who are actually not included in the national inquiry into justice. And so we're going to talk to Curtis, who spearheaded this event.
This upside down canoe represents our brothers that gone missing and murdered. That's what this is, the upside down canoe. And this is the ocean, and the star is the creator. We're coming to reclaim them. That's why that canoe is here, to come and reclaim them. We're here because of the missing Indigenous women's work, their leadership, the matriarch. We're just following their lead. In fact, the woman said that. When are the men going to stand up? When are we going to start making our voices heard? And humbly rose my hand and said, "Okay, sister, I got your message loud and clear. We're going to do our turn."
The CBC's Yasmin Gandam reporting earlier today. If you're looking to take a trip to and from Vancouver Island this summer, you will soon have a new option. Starting in August, a new foot passenger ferry will run between downtown Vancouver and downtown Nanaimo. It will cost adults between $40 and $60 for a one-way trip on a Hello ferry. Passengers can choose between 3 ticket classes: comfort, premium, and business. Hello is run by the Vancouver Island Ferry Company in Victoria and plans to make the crossing in about 70 minutes. Discounts are being offered for first-time trips booked online. If sipping something outdoors is more your speed, you can now enjoy a beer or a glass of wine at the Granville Island Market, all part of a pilot project to serve alcoholic beverages in designated public spaces, which includes the market and the nearby courtyard. You'll be able to drink at the specific spots from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. from now until the end of the year, and signs will be up showing you where you cannot and can imbibe. The sculptor of the Chinatown Memorial Plaza is adding his voice to those concerned about BD Development's Kiefer Street condo project. Arthur Chung, who was commissioned to build the sculptures in 2003, is worried that such a tall building does not belong in the otherwise culturally significant space. The plaza is currently surrounded by the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Gardens and the Chinese Cultural Center, which would be overshadowed by the new development. He spoke with us using a translator.
And what will happen is that this statue that I've created will become no longer the centerpiece of the square, but will become essentially like an add-on to this development. This historical monument will then become an ornament for this building.
Chung was careful to say he recognizes the area is in need of more housing and knows the development could bring more people to the area and help boost struggling businesses. He hopes, though, the city will consider more options for the empty lot that he thinks might better fit the community. It is a big return for mixed martial arts fans in BC. The UFC returns to Canada this weekend for the first time since the pandemic began. Fighters will square off in the Octagon tomorrow night at Rogers Arena. 5 Canadians are on the card with the hopes of making this country proud. Our John Hernandez spoke with a few of them who are embracing the pressure of competing on home soil.
Once I get into the cage, that's when I just start feeling peace.
Mike Malott says he's long been visualizing the moment he steps into the cage at Rogers Arena.
What it's going to feel like, what it's going to sound like, what the air is going to feel like.
The Ontario-born fighter is one of 5 Canadians competing on Saturday, and the anticipation is building.
This has been a dream of mine my entire fight career. Since before I got into fighting professionally, I've always wanted to fight in the UFC at home in Canada, in front of just wild Canadian fans.
The crowd favorite hopes he can use the spotlight to build the sport across the country.
So I want Canadian MMA to really make a rise, and if I can play a part in that, especially on Saturday night, I'm more than happy to lead the charge or to help inspire the next generation.
I've fought up here a couple of times in my amateur days. I'm from the Pacific Northwest.
With no BC fighters on the card, Malott's opponent, Portland's Adam Fugit, says he's as close to a hometown fighter as it gets.
I go in getting booed, and I leave getting the applause and some respect.
Other fighters tasked with squaring off against Canadian opponents, equally unfazed by any potential hostility from the pro-Canada crowd.
I really wouldn't call Canada a hostile territory, dude. I fought in Brazil. That's a hostile territory. I fought in Toronto. I fought Theodoro in Toronto, and, they were super friendly. I don't really remember getting booed or them telling me I was going to die.
The event is headlined by Brazilian UFC champion Amanda Nunes, defending her title against Mexico's Irene Aldana. The picturesque backdrop behind their clash, not lost on either fighter.
I never knew Canada before. I'm really excited to be here. It's beautiful. The city is beautiful. I went for a good run too, and I was able to see the combination of the mountains and the water is like unbelievable.
Forget the rumble in the jungle. Come Saturday night, it's a free-for-all at the Seawall. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
If you wonder about, embrace, or dread the tipping option at cafes and restaurants, you're not alone. Coming up, we're going to speak with an expert who says design tricks can nudge you to tip more than you may be comfortable with. You'll want to hear this. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. A new plus-size clothing swap offers Metro Vancouverites free second-hand clothes, sizes 14 and up. Organizers say they want to create a welcoming community for those who are often cut out of the fashion industry. Have a look.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're doing a clothing swap. This is a swap specifically for people who are sizes 14 and up. This is our first one. We've actually gotten a lot of really good engagement on Instagram. A lot of people reaching out, just saying like, it's really great to see this kind of space in Vancouver. Vancouver tends to be very small sizes, and it's hard to find plus size clothing for people in our community. The goal here is to be able to provide affordable clothing for people who are plus size. The issues we find in the plus size community is that we're all different shapes and sizes, and it's hard to find clothing that fits.
So it's impossible to find, not impossible, very hard to find plus size clothes in thrift stores, and the ones that are there are taken by people who are smaller bodied and used to like upcycle into something, you know, bigger, and so they'll take the bigger clothes to make themselves something tailored, and so we're left with hardly anything. And then the stores that we do have are really expensive, so yeah, it's hard to find anything. And especially if you're a bigger fat person, so I'm like a medium fat person, if you're bigger, then it's impossible. Oh my God, look at this. Brand new with tags. Obviously it looks amazing on me, right? Do I look fabulous or what?
For many of us, a morning coffee or bagel run involves the swivel of an iPad or tablet and a list of tip options, anywhere from 10 to 30%, sometimes no option to skip the tip at all. And if you find yourself tipping more when presented with those preset amounts, join the club. Joining us now to explain why is Olivier St. Cyr, an associate professor at the Faculty of Information at the University of Toronto and currently a visiting associate professor at UBC. Olivier, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you've looked into this concept of what you've called dark design when it comes to tipping. What is dark design?
So dark design is basically a way for designers to trick us into doing certain behaviors with technology. So it's breaking a design rule that we know normally works well for people, but to actually trick us users when we use these technologies. So in the case of tipping, the dark design patterns that we're more interested in is the one called pre-selection. And this is the one where typically you'll be presented with some options. Typically these machines present between 3 to 4 options, and then they're predetermined amount. And what the machine wants you to do is go with one of those pre-selected options when you tip, right? I'm sure many of the viewers have seen this when
We've
tipping
all
for their
experienced
good.
it, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's a technical aspect to this, as you've said, but also a psychological one. How do you find these tipping methods actually nudge people to tip more?
So the psychological aspect related to this is the idea of the Hawthorne effect, which is that humans tend to change their behaviors when they're being observed. When we're observed, we want to be kind of socially good, or we want to be socially desired. So the tipping industry changed that a lot, actually, in the last few years. If you think about tipping a few years ago, especially pre-pandemic, a lot of people were paying in cash or whatever.
Sure.
You'd be pretty much brought a bill at your table, and the server would kind of walk away for a few minutes, like let you time to look at the bill, calculate how much tip you want to give, and then give the tip.
If you wanted to tip at all.
If you wanted to tip at all, yes. But now we're presented with these machines that are just turned to us, right? And these machines are turned by the same person who has taken our order. So the person takes our order, turns the machine towards us, and the person's right there kind of observing us, right?
So the process is all sped up.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we don't want to look cheap. We don't want to be seen as less socially desired because, we're tipping the lowest amount on the display, even though sometimes the lowest amount can be set at 15 or 18%, right?
Yeah. So do you think that the way these tablets or these programs are made need to change?
Well, actually, for sure, there has to be a way to kind of standardize this. Right now, there's many different tipping machines. They all have kind of different ways to be designed. Some will give you just a predetermined option and won't allow you to customize your tip or give no tip. This is especially important for takeouts, for example, where people have felt that tipping takeout is kind of a new thing that we're starting to experience. Some machine will actually give you an option to customize your tip, but it might involve several steps. And you're not sure where you're going to venture if you take that option.
Down the garden path.
Exactly. Yeah. And then so, you're waiting in line. There's many people waiting with you. It's much easier to just tap one of the pre-selected option. And then the last thing I want to kind of mention about that is people have added this kind of information on top of the amount. They'll use words like good or great or very good.
Or smiley emojis.
Yeah, smiley emojis. But sometimes the word good will be associated with the sort of the cheapest option, but it's still set at 15 or 18%. So it's to me, maybe as a customer, 15 to 18% is not a good tip. It's actually an excellent tip or very good tip, right? So, but because they put the word good, kind of if I pick good, it sends a signal that I just thought the service was kind of normal or good. So I'm going to pick something that is slightly higher. So typically people will pick the second or the third option when given these pre-selected options.
Olivier St-Cyr, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Lots to think about when it comes to design and psychology. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Another indictment against Donald Trump. The secret documents that the former president is accused of mishandling. The criminal charges he faces are up next.
It's a special occasion for Alec and Peggy Imrity. Special enough to break out the champagne.
Yeah, got the glasses. Okay.
Somebody dear to them is celebrating a birthday. Alec is a sculptor, and today his favorite masterpiece, The Girl in the Wetsuit at Stanley Park, is Sweet 16. And that calls for a toast. The Imrities can't help but be sentimental. The girl in the wetsuit is like one of the family.
She means so much to us. We love her.
It is my creations and my girl, after all.
But their girl wasn't always so highly thought of. In 1972, newspapers wanted to know why, on earth, a girl in a wetsuit. Art gallery director Tony Emery declared bronze statues were passé, silly. $30,000 for this? But plans went ahead, and 16 years ago today, the girl in the wetsuit became the girl in Stanley Park. Since then, she's endured wintry seas and engineers' pranks, wet t-shirts and rubber duckies. But today for the birthday girl, it's photos, birthday greetings, and a visit from old friends.
I hope she's there forever. Sweet 16, happy birthday.
Major news out of Ottawa tonight. 3 months after David Johnston was appointed special rapporteur tasked with looking into foreign interference in Canadian elections, he's quit. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Johnston blames partisan politics. As Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, the announcement came late and as a surprise to many.
David Johnston, just days ago, faced opposition MPs demanding his resignation.
I will continue to invite disagreement on my recommendations, but will not be deterred from completing my work.
That changed late Friday with a letter to the Prime Minister. My objective was to help build trust in our democratic institutions, he wrote, but he added, given the highly partisan atmosphere around my appointment and work, my leadership has had the opposite effect. I am therefore tendering my resignation.
It's really unfortunate that the Prime Minister, when faced with the opportunity to have someone truly independent lead a public, transparent inquiry, that he selected someone that was a family friend.
From the moment he was appointed special rapporteur to look into foreign interference in Canadian elections, Conservatives criticized what they called Johnston's close relationship with Justin Trudeau and his family.
Fire this rapporteur and call a public inquiry now. David Johnston is a man of integrity.
Last month, Johnston recommended public hearings, not the public inquiry the opposition wants. That's when all opposition parties, led by the NDP, voted they had lost confidence in him.
I think it's important for Mr. Trudeau now to respect that parliamentary vote as well.
Trudeau appointed Johnston in response to political pressure after reporting by Global News and the Globe and Mail alleged the Chinese government was interfering in Canadian elections, favoring Liberal candidates and targeting opposition MPs who were critical of Beijing.
What justification exists to not move forward with a public inquiry at this point?
This could be a chance for a reset, says this national security expert.
What we need to do is understand precisely, and to an extent we already do, but for the to understand precisely how this is affecting diaspora communities.
Johnston's parting note includes a recommendation for someone to continue the work he started, ideally with an all-party consensus. The government says it will talk to the opposition. It's unclear how much they'll listen if an inquiry is not an option. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Donald Trump is facing nearly 40 federal criminal charges over his handling of classified documents. The allegations are jaw-dropping and laid out in detail in an indictment unsealed today. Prosecutors allege Trump not only had top-secret national security materials, but he showed them to people on at least 2 occasions. As the CBC's Katie Simpson reports, Trump claims he's innocent.
Investigators found boxes of documents in an easily accessible ballroom, an extravagant bathroom with a chandelier in the Mar-a-Lago club, and materials sloppily strewn across a floor, including documents for the Five Eyes Security Alliance only, of which Canada is a member. A small glimpse into the evidence in this historic and explosive case.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
Donald Trump and his personal aide, Walt Nauta, are facing a total of 38 federal charges, including the willful retention of documents, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and corruptly concealing a document. In the unsealed indictment, prosecutors allege Trump had documents on defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, nuclear programs, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack.
Our laws that protect national defense information are critical to the safety and security of the United States.
Trump is also accused of refusing to return documents, suggesting materials be hidden or destroyed, with his aide allegedly moving boxes to avoid detection. Evidence gathered at Trump's New Jersey golf club suggests he knew the materials were restricted, including a discussion of one paper with individuals without security clearance. An audio recording of the incident says Trump described a plan of attack document. He called it highly confidential and secret, and that he also said, "As president, I could have declassified it, and now I can't. This is still a secret." Trump says he's innocent and claims this investigation is politically motivated.
We can't let this continue to go on because it's ripping our country to shreds. We have such big problems, and this shouldn't be one of them. It's a hoax.
The indictment is prompting at least one of Trump's political challengers to say he should no longer seek the Republican presidential nomination.
The campaign does not need this distraction. He doesn't need the distraction of a campaign. And so that's the reason I say it. Obviously, he's not going to do it.
Katie Simpson reporting tonight. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson surprised the country today with the news he's quitting politics for now. The shock announcement came after an investigation determined he had misled British Parliament with his testimony about celebrations that broke pandemic gathering rules. Johnson claimed he hadn't done anything wrong and the investigation was out to get him. The former PM was elected as Britain's leader in 2019, but he was forced out by his party less than 3 years later. He had been an MP until today. It's music that is trash. Literally. But it turns out this garbage actually sounds pretty good. Meet the man behind the Recycled Band after this.
This community center was the command center for the recent wildfires in Chinatown. It's not far from my own home, which I had to evacuate like thousands of others. Firefighters started and ended their day here, and it's where we heard officials give updates on the fire. With those fires now contained, we wondered, what exactly are the stages of a wildfire? Out of control, the most dangerous stage. It means the fire is not responding to suppression efforts. DNR says for every wildfire, there's an incident commander, and their job is to survey the scene and create a plan of attack, taking into consideration things like weather, topography, and the fuels of the forest, and the overall environment. Most times, crews start with getting a hose line around the perimeter to gain some type of containment. They're not trying to extinguish the fire. They're trying to knock it down to get it to a manageable level and stop it from growing. During this stage, safety zones and escape routes are made in case weather throws a curveball. There's also 2 types of attacks, direct and indirect. Direct is what you'd probably imagine fighting a fire looks like, spraying water on the fire from the ground, water bombers dumping water from the air. Indirect attacks are when you go beyond the edge of the fire and remove the fuel, like wood and leaves, by digging down to the mineral soil with heavy machinery. It's something DNR's Dave Steeves referred to as dozer breaks time and time again. That creates a fire break so that it burns itself out. Being held falls somewhere in between the fire being out of control and under control. DNR says this stage is reached when the incident commander is comfortable saying the fire likely won't spread. There's a reduction in the flame front, some sort of break around the perimeter, and suppression efforts are working. But DNR warns that can quickly change because of things like weather and topography. Even a slight change in any of these can change your tactics or even change the status of the wildfire. Under control means crews are able to ensure the fire won't keep spreading. Crews work on wildfires from the outside in. If they've stopped the spread, then they're able to start moving inward, snuffing out areas of concern and dousing hotspots within those limits. It's what you've maybe heard referred to as a mop-up. Patrolling involves turning over rocks, ripping apart stumps, feeling areas of concern with the back of your hand. This part can take a really long time because it takes a great deal of comfort for the incident commander to move on to the final stage. When the fire is extinguished, they're patrolling the area, looking at past, current, and forecasted weather, and they're considering the fuel types on the scene and whether they could spark back up. They're also considering the time of year the fire happened. In the spring, fires burn quickly, but they don't tend to burn deep underground like they do later in the summer when the ground is drier. It's all based on science, and really every decision that the incident commander makes throughout the wildfire is carefully weighed and made in collaboration with many experts.
Go ahead, you can call his music garbage. He's just fine with it. Meet a musician and composer who creates his own tunes out of castaways. Here's a listen.
I build musical instruments out of recycled material. I'm trying to make an entire orchestra. I've invented musical instruments of my own devising and then writing music for that. Some things I've just found and gone, oh, this is cool, it looks great, what does it sound like? Or I find bits of other broken things that look like they'll belong to other broken things, and then there's a lot of play and experimentation that goes on. I've been building instruments for 22, 23 years using metal fabrication and welding. Before that, I just used to use found objects. Recycled stuff gives me new sound, new texture, lots of inspiration, but I also like finding things that other people have touched with their hands already and cast off. So things that had a life before I grab hold of it, and I feel like I'm bringing something back into the mix. I love using this is all BC-based stuff for the most part, and love British Columbia, big province, so I make big instruments, large-scale articulated sculptures. This puppy right here is called the Pippolini. It's 30 chunks of stainless steel and aluminum and regular ordinary steel, and it's cut to different lengths. And a lot of this came from the pulp mill up island, up in around Nanaimo. All these brand new instruments that came out of local recycled material, lampshades from Camosun College. What this is a remnant from the when the BC ferries were making the fast cats. All of this incredible aluminum came through our scrapyards on Powell Street, and this was a piece of the stuff that was marked BC shipyards. And it was a flat sheet of aluminum that I ended up making into this form. These are called cycordians, and I found a discarded Bellini accordion in a dumpster, and the bellows was gone, but all of the reed banks are great. So I cut them out, and with a jeweler's saw, I cut out the individual reeds and then re-glued them into these couplings I got from one of those places that reconstitute used housing stuff. This is a military surplus, old howitzer shell. They're beautiful. The metal sounds incredible. And I cut them to tune them to different pitches, and there's a wide variety of sounds.
Joe. Who hasn't, well, to be fair, who hasn't pounded out a beat in a lampshade once in a while?
Or found an old Bellini accordion in a trash can. Who hasn't?
Exactly. Yeah, but where's the Bellini? Oh.
I don't even know if I got the name of that right.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. And what was it, Piccolino? Piccolini?
Something that made noise. Before the one from World War II.
That's the one.
Very cool, though.
Oh, my goodness. Violent segue, a little bit cooler today, at least on the South Coast, for weather. How are we doing ahead this weekend?
Well, I'm going to tell you, but Violent Segue is now my new band name, just so you know.
Yeah,
that's
trademarked.
it. Trademark. We finally have some rain moving in across the province. It is much needed. It's really a 2-day hit. I know earlier this week we were saying it was a 1-day wonder. We are getting more moisture than some of the earlier models were showing, and that is a good thing. That does mean that the rain will linger into our weekend for the South Coast. It is exceptionally dry. We will take all we can get. Still tracking that thunderstorm just south of Tumbler Ridge. A lot of rain, though, with it, so hopefully that moisture helping out. This is the low pressure system that'll continue to move northwest. A general 20 to 40 millimeters for central and southern BC. That's going to really help to lower the immediate fire danger. We do get some moisture up towards the northeast. We could use it on both sides of the borders with fresh fires starting just west of Edmonton. A general 10 to 20 millimeters in through Metro Vancouver. As I said, it's an immediate relief for the fire danger, but things will turn back to dry very quickly given the state of our soil and fuels, as we mentioned earlier. Just want to time out the rain for Metro Vancouver. So this is right now, we're seeing those showers across the south coast becoming a little heavier through the overnight. And then here's 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Still likely to see the light rain across Metro Vancouver through most of our Saturday. Look for it to begin to lift as we head into the evening hours. We might see a nice sunset tomorrow night. It will be nice to get a couple days of the moisture, finally ending our 34-day dry streak at YVR. Seeing those showers up towards Prince George, Williams Lake, likely not going to see them out towards central and northern coastal sections, but even in through the Okanagan, Kootenays, that rain continues through the Saturday. And temperatures down quite a bit as well, just an 18 for YVR tomorrow, maybe 17, 18. Coming back up for Sunday into Monday. Temperatures a little questionable as we head into early next week. Yesterday, it looked like it was going to be a dry and warm forecast, Dan. Some uncertainty now for next week, which again, could be a good thing, but I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Thanks very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
It's the last of our Wild Work series, looking at women working in the field of conservation. Today, we take you to the west coast of Vancouver Island, where a Quebec City woman found a sense of purpose in Ucluelet. They brave a snowy, wet coast day to hit the beach and dive underwater.
So the weather today is looking not awesome. Luckily, I have a 7mm suit, but when the temperature is 0 degrees, at that point, does it even matter? My name is Elena Jean, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. And today, we're learning about the work of an ocean conservationist. I think it's actually snowing this morning. I don't know if you can see that right now, but it should be fine.
Good morning. I'm Aline Carrier from Quebec City. I moved to the west coast of Vancouver Island 8 years ago, and I'm an oceanographer. What I do right now, I'm working for Tok'uk Nation developing the Marine Stewardship Program. The second thing, the Rising Tide Surf Team. So I'm part of the committee that will be organizing the activities. The third thing are CMSR, so the Marine Search and Rescue Team. I also do marine environmental emergency preparedness and free diving sessions, so to get into the water and different levels of engagement with mostly women.
Thank you. That's a good list.
That's a good list.
What would you say ties all of them together?
Yeah, the desire of protecting the ocean, engaging with people.
Okay, so today we're going diving.
and it's a quite interesting ecosystem. So we'll go there, we'll go diving there. When I'm working, when I'm doing something, I'm taking an ecosystem-based approach. But the part that I have a little bit of trouble with it is in scientific publication about oceanography, we remove humans as part of the ecosystem. But I think it's a very, very important aspect to it.
Hi, how's it going? Yes.
Have you been here before?
I have not been here.
Okay.
No, I'm excited.
Today, Allie's taking us free diving, where we'll learn about the local ecosystem and about marine stewardship. And we'll also learn about Allie's philosophy for just getting in the elements.
I think it's nice even when it's rainy like this. It's one of these that, like, anyways, it's wet and cold, so may as well just enjoy it and being in the water. Like, okay, it's a little bit slippery.
So it's gonna be a challenging one today.
It's not perfect conditions. I'm getting quite excited.
Yeah, there's two of them out there.
Your seals or other? They're seals! No way! 2 seals!
One of my favorite things about Allie is her enthusiasm.
Okay, it's happening.
Me, on the other hand, I am enthusiastic about maybe not wearing jeans next time it's pouring freezing rain.
Well, we were just talking about how, actually I was just talking about how all I could think about is the hot chocolate that we're gonna have afterwards. It's a 7 mil.
So it's an open cell wetsuit. It's kind of a second skin basically, so it's a lot of work, but it's wonderful. Marine stewardship is protection and monitoring of the ecosystem, but includes humans. Something like conserving a certain resource, but while understanding that there might be a positive and negative stress coming from humans' interaction with this resource. Just as an example, giant kelp, so macrocystis. What else is affecting that kelp for us? What are the different elements? And we can think about the urchins eating more and more kelp. But then there's other things in the system that could be eating urchins. Once you start to put your head in this water, you want to protect it. Like, for sure, you want to do something about it, and it's not necessarily like, okay, we don't touch to anything. No, you want to know more. You want to know, like, hey, is this delicious? So if I want to eat it, if I would like to eat more of this, what do I need to do? How can we do this?
This is what we eat, and this is what we refer as uni. Dislocated here on this side. Ta-da! And then whoop, in the mud. Lovely.
Marine stewardship monitoring could be to be taking into consideration a more cultural approach, a more human-based approach, putting it back to our natural instinct to be connecting with nature.
Okay, I'm going for another one. Okay, here we go.
If you had a piece of advice for someone who wants to do the work that you do and live the lifestyle that you live, what would that be?
One thing at a time. To start with one thing at a time. Start with a wetsuit. Just a wetsuit, a used wetsuit full of holes, no problem. You start there. And then it's gonna just come, like there's gonna be a mask, there's gonna be this, but also it's just a relationship with the ocean.
We're nearing the end of BC Seniors Week, so time to hear some wisdom from these elders. That's next.
feels lovely and relaxing to go down Bay Street, just surrounded by cyclists. Then for a moment, I'm in Amsterdam.
Reality is, this is Toronto, and our cycling network is still a little patchy.
When the Adelaide bike lanes went in and I rode from the West End into the downtown core, I had to go to a meeting, and all the way through I was like, oh, I still feel safe.
Many of the cyclists who rode down to Nathan Phillips Square for the Bike Month event rode in on cycle tracks or dedicated bike lanes.
We've really grown a culture of cycling in the city of Toronto, and it's great to see that the network that we've built out over the last few years is being appreciated and used by residents.
There's a push to expand the separated bike lane network to as many corners of the city as possible, while some candidates want to roll them back.
Those have been put in with immense public consultation, with the support of the local councillors and with the support of council. And so I think that any mayoral candidate that thinks they're going to start off as mayor ripping out bike lanes, it's a bad idea.
This is not to say that I don't like bike lanes. Listening to communities, talking to people, that has been a burning issue.
Mark Saunders is proposing a moratorium on any new bike lanes and to get rid of the ones along University Avenue.
One of the most vital hospital streets in the entire country, adding another layer of traffic complications when seconds matters in saving lives.
Josh Matlow says he would rather pedal on.
We're not going to be changing or reversing or scrapping things for elections. We're moving forward.
For Olivia Chow's stance, this video taken of her riding to a campaign event this morning tells you a lot.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi there.
How are you?
Great. We need some pragmatism and common sense, especially around cycling infrastructure.
Candidate Anna Bailau, meanwhile, says streets are for everyone.
We can't have bike lanes in all major streets. It's true. In my own community, we needed a north-south route, and there was pressure to have it on Dufferin Street. That's a major bus route. We couldn't have it. We had to put it on one of the residential streets. We need that balance.
Striking a balance between drivers and cyclists is going to be challenging for these candidates, as one such rider points out.
But the political will has to be put in place to make it happen.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. The Talking Stick Festival 2023 Summer Reverb celebrates National Indigenous History Month from June 1st to July 2nd. A variety of performances will wow audiences in film, theater, dance, and music. For more info and tickets, visit talkingstickfest.ca. And CBC British Columbia launches The Herb Original, a new podcast for Indigenous History Month. All episodes are available now on CBC Listen.
We are almost at the end of Seniors Week here in BC. And to mark it, our Benit Brach asked some older people to share their life advice, from recommendations against a big wedding to regrets about turning down a date 3 times. These folks have plenty to say.
I'll be 87 in 5 weeks. Yeah, don't forget.
Make sure that you continue to exercise, to make sure that you stay flexible.
Be happy, just be myself. Pull no punches.
Opportunities and things happen. So deal with it, learn from it, and do the best that you can, because tomorrow is another day.
Do you have any regrets?
That my husband passed away so early, but that's nothing you have control over. More travel to more countries. I'm not prepared to travel at this stage of my life. I'm stuck right here in Burnaby. I might go to Vancouver.
I regret not working harder at school. Still, if I could go back, maybe I would do more for the talent that I have, maybe in the singing and all that.
My only regret was I turned it down almost 3 times in a month. And then I got to know her. We had 50 years, the most beautiful life you could ever expect.
Your happiest memory?
The day I got married, I eloped. Best thing I ever did.
I love that.
To the best man that I ever knew. Yeah.
What's the key to a happy marriage? Finding a partner?
I was married 57 years. People say, oh, you've got to compromise, and you truly do have to compromise.
Love, affection, he takes care of me, I take care of him. You have to love each other. Everything is fine.
Birds in harbor aren't exactly unexpected, but these birds had people doing a bit of a double take. Yep, there they are, these two delighted folks as they made their way across Victoria Harbour in Hong Kong. The artwork is called Double Ducks, and the Dutch artist, who else, who created them, hope they bring the city luck. The birds are about 18 meters high, almost 60 feet. And if the idea seems a bit familiar, the same artist was behind a Rubber Duck created in 2007, and it went on a world tour for several years. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC. Janella Hamilton will have your late local news tonight at 11, right after the National. Good night. Have a good weekend.